Hello, when we are working inside Figma, we have the ability to create component and its properties. So first we need to understand what is a component. So component is basically a reusable element which you can reuse in your design system or in your whole project. And the first advantage that you get from creating component is that you don't repeat yourself. And the second biggest advantage you get is consistent designs, which is the key for user experience and for user interface. So to get started, I have already created a component, and this is an input field for my form, and this input field have multiple variants. So the first one is default, the second is disabled, the third one is active state, and the fourth one is the error message. So these are the variants which I think are usable in my project, and I created the variants according to that. So the first component that you create is called master component, or the parent one, and then when you create its child, for example, I will grab this default state in the layers panel, and I will create a copy by pressing option, and I will drag it out over here. So now on the right side you can see that I have states and I have the default one selected from it. So if I open this drop down, you can see that I can see the other states from it. So now I will create another copy over here, and I will try to select the active state for this component. So in this drop down I will select the active one. So you can see that whatever is coming from the master component, it's showing over here. So this is how you can create multiple variants and use it in your prototypes accordingly. And now I will go ahead and create another copy over here, and I will select the error message over here. So my input field, if has some error, I want to show it in the prototype. So this is how you can show the multiple states when you are creating the components. And in the last one, I will show the disabled state over here. So in future, for example, there was some changes, like I want to change the color of this error message. If I zoom in, you can see that the color of the error message and the input field is not matching. So I will select the parent component over here, and for the rectangle, I will select the color, and in strokes I will select the same red color as the error message. So now you can see that the instance or the child item is also changing the color. So wherever this child instance was used, the color will be updated in the whole prototype or in all design file. And once you have done the changes, you can also publish it to your library by right clicking on it and going to main components and publish selected components. So once you publish your selected component, it will be updated in your whole library, and it will be also updated in all design files that is using that same library. So this is just the example that how I created a master component, and I wanted to show the instances. But now I will move on to the first property that we have in the component properties. So first I will show how I created the component from here. So I can press Command Option and K. This is a shortcut, or you can right click and you can select create component. So in the layer panels, you can see that I have given it a meaningful name. So try to give it a meaningful name so the other person using your components, if he is a designer or developer or project manager, he knows what does this specific component mean, because this component may be used in other design files or in some library when you publish it. So if it's not meaningful, it doesn't make sense to other people. So now on the right side, you can see that I have a panel called properties, and I have a plus icon over there. So I will press this plus icon, and you can see that I have 4 different options for now. So I will select the variant over here, and to create first variant of this, like this is the default state, now I want to create the active state. So I will press this plus icon, and after pressing this plus icon, I will call this, instead of properties, I will call this states, and instead of variant, I will call this one active variant. So this is like presenting the active state of this input field. So now I want to show the changes that would be useful for active state when we are using it inside the prototypes, or a user is really reacting with our forms and he is clicking on that specific input field. So what would be the difference? So I will select this rectangle, and in the strokes I will go over here, and instead of black I will remove this, and I will select a color. So for selecting color, I will use this eyedropper and select the same blue color as I have used in the example. And now I will go ahead and create another variant that would be error message. So I will press this plus icon, and instead of state 3 I will call it error message, or simply the error, and I will press enter. And now in this state, I want to show an error message, but I also want to change the color of input field, like the stroke of it. So I will go ahead and I will select this error message and just make a copy and try to include it inside the frame over here. And now I will readjust this error message, and I will change the height of this specific frame, and I will put the error message beneath that. And you can also create auto layout on your component. So for example, I selected this component and I will press Shift plus A. So now you can see that I can also give the spacing in between and spacing from side. So I will increase from top and bottom, and I will make it 20 over here, so from top and bottom it also have the same kind of spacing, so it looks well aligned and it make more sense to the person who will be seeing it. And now I will go ahead and create the fourth state, that is the disable state. And this means that if the user is trying to click the input field, it doesn't click over there or take any action from user. And in this state I will only change the color to the disable. So for the stroke panel I will go ahead and remove the color, and I will press plus, and I will select disable color for this specific stroke. So I will select it from the existing one. And now you can see that I have created a component, and I will try to rename it so I can find it in the assets with its name. So I will call this input field and variant only. So now if I go to assets now and I will try to search for input field and I search for variant, you will be able to see the specific input field that we have created right now. So I will try to grab this out and put it inside this canvas. And now on the right side you can see that the variant that we created, that was state, and it has some variants drop down, so you can select the specific variant that you need. So I have selected the error state, and you can see that I have made a mistake. So to fix that, I will go to the parent or the master component, and over here in the strokes panel I will select the red color for error message. So for example, I go to the eyedropper tool and I will select this red color, and I will also give some more breathing space to this error message so it can go a little bit downwards. So you can see that whatever change I make in the parent or the master component, it all automatically apply to its instance. So this is how you can create a component and its different variants. And this was the first property that we can create for our components. So now moving to the second one, and over here we have the second property. It's called Boolean. It's the same as the programming language. We use true or false. So in this example I have an input field, and in this input field it has some instances, like I have created an HTML form and I have used the same kind of components. So I want to show this optional only for some of the fields, and I want to remove for some of them. So first I will select the parent component, and on the right side in the properties panel I will press this plus icon, and you can see that I have the second property called Boolean, and I will call this optional over here. And for the default value it should be false, or either it should be true. So I will select the false over here and create a property. And for this optional text I want to apply this specific property, so I will select optional. And in the layers panel you can see that I have selected the text layer, and over here in the layers panel on the right I will apply this Boolean property, so I will select optional. So now you can see that the optional get hided because I create a property and I selected the value of false. And now in my form I just want to show the optional for the last name. So over here I will select the last name, and as it is instance of this master component, so on the right side you can see that I have a switch for either showing or hiding the optional over here. So for this instance I want to show the optional, so I will turn it on. So this is a really good feature if you want to show and hide something in your prototypes or design for specific scenarios, and it depends on your prototype how you can make a good usage of this specific Boolean property. And now I will be moving to the third property, that is called instance swap. So how does it work? So over here in this example I have already downloaded some icons. So to download icons you can right click and go to plugins and search for material symbols, so you can get icons from there. It's a free library and it doesn't cost anything, and you can get the basic icons from over there. And once you get icons from there, try to make out component out of it. So for example in the layers panel you can see that it's already showing me this specific icon, tells me that this layer is a component, it's not a normal layer. So I want to achieve that in this form, I want to show that if the email address or the first name is right, it should show a tick mark, or if something is wrong, it should show a red icon. And if a user needs some information, there should be a note icon, and he presses on that and it shows the information or some helping text for that. So first thing, I will try to make a copy of this specific component and try to include it in the master component of the input field. So you can see that its instance is already showing the same icon because this is the master component and these are the instances I'm using in the form. So now on the right side, you can see that I have an icon. It's used for creating instance swap property. This is one way you can create instance swap property, or you can also select the parent, and in properties panel you can press this plus icon and you can create an instance swap property over here. So I will call this icon, and for instance I will select this specific tick mark icon or the good icon. So I will select this right, and remember that this drop down shows you all the components that are lying inside your pages. So for example, in this file I have 4 different pages, and the first one is called swatches, the second is bootstrap grid, the third one is auto layout, and the fourth one is component properties. So if I again open this specific pick instances, you can see that I have components created in auto layout and component properties page, so it's showing me accordingly. And in that, I go inside again and I can select the component which lies inside that page. So for the default value, I will select this right icon, and for preferred values I can press this plus icon. In preferred values, for example, I want to use some preferred icons just for this input field, so I can prefer some icons over here. For example, I want to use this note only, and I want to use this wrong one, and I want to use this right one. So these are the 3 icons I prefer for this input field. So I have created a property and I haven't assigned it this to icon. So I will select this specific instance, and in instance I will go to this instance swap property, and now you can see that I already have this property over here, and I can select this one. And now if I select one of the instance, for example, for the first name I like to use this right icon, but for the last name I just want to use the wrong icon just to show it to the user or to my project managers that how this state would look like if something is wrong entered over there. So I will switch this from right to wrong. And for example, for email or password, I just want to show the note icon. So on the right side, you can see that I can swap the icons over here. So this is one of the way you can use the instance swap property, but you can use it according to your scenario and your prototypes. And now moving to the fourth property that we have for component properties, that is called text. So in this example, I have this input field again, but this time I want to create a property for label and placeholder. So in the instances, I want to give some different text to its instances. For example, I want to call this one first name, this one last name, email, and password. But I don't want to get effect on each instance or its parent. So I will go to the properties panel and press this plus icon, and this time I will select text and I will name it as label, and the value should be, the default value should be a label, or it should be the first name. And now I will go ahead and create another property for text, and this one should be the placeholder, and for the value I will again call it a placeholder. Now you can see that I have created the properties, but you can see that it's giving me a notification that these properties are not used anywhere. So I will select this label text layer, and in this label text layer, I will go to content, and in content, I can apply text property. So I will press this icon, and for this one, I will select label. And now I will select the placeholder text layer, and in the content section I will apply the placeholder property. So now you can see that for the first instance that was label, I called the default value as first name, so all the instances are renamed as first name. But if I select the instance itself, now I can use some different name. For example, we have this text property called label, and I will call this one last name. And for the placeholder, I will use the name of Doe, like just a dummy name. And in the first one, I will use, instead of placeholder, I will use John. And in the second row, the first one should be called email, and the placeholder should be called like the dummy name, so John Doe @ of email. And for the last one, I will select it as a password, and for the placeholder I will just use the asterisk. So this is how you can create text properties for your component, and you can give a unique text according to your prototype. And now I will move to the last property that we have in component properties, that is called nested instances. So nested instances is basically a component which is interlinked between different state of components, and you can use those components in a unique way. So in this example I have an input field, and for that input field I want to use these three icons on the right side presenting a different state. So in this example, in the first step I created the input fields and I want to use some icons, but these icons are component itself and it has different variants, like it has three different variants, and these input field have four different variants, but these can be interconnected with each other. Like I can use this variant and I can include it inside the input field and it would be interlinked, and it is called nested instance. But then I can also use this specific input field inside another one, that is the result card that I created in the fourth step. And in the second step what I did is I created three labels, and these are three different variants, and it is component itself. And in step 3 I created three big icons that I want to show as a result to the user according to some test that he created or he conducted. So for example, I will try to create it once again. So I will remove this specific components that I have already used over here. So I will remove this excellent, and I will remove this icon over here, and I will remove this email field over here. So to create nested instances, first step, I will go to the first step and I will select an icon over here. For example, I want to show this good icon, and I will select this one and create a copy by pressing this option key and dragging it inside this input layer. So I am dragging it inside the default layer, and I will also create it inside the active state or the error message. But in the error message I will select the wrong value over here. So on the right side you can see that in input icons I can switch it from good to bad. And now I will select this default state and I will create a copy and try to drag it inside the fourth step, that is the card that I want to create. And going back to the second step, I want to use this label, so I will create a copy of the specific satisfactory or good label, and I will select option and I will drag it inside to the specific frame, and I will leave it over here so it can go to the right top corner. And from step 3 I will select this note or danger icon, so I will create a copy and drag it inside the specific frame. So as my result card is created, I want to create this nested instances, so I will select this master component. And if I go to properties panel, you can see that I have the option of nested instances here. So now if I click this nested instances, you can see that I have nested instance for labels, and with labels I have nested instance for input fields, because they have their own properties or they have their own variants and different states. So I can expose those properties by selecting this checkbox. So now if I go to the instance of this specific result component, you can see that I can switch these labels, like coming from its parents. I can select the specific label that was coming from its parent component. Like for example, I have the property or the variant for good, and I will also switch the state of input field, and I will select an error message over here. But now the question is, what if I want to swap this icon according to good look? So for example, my label is good, but I want to switch the icon to the good one. So I will select the parent component, and in parent component I will select this satisfactory component, and I can create an instance swap property over here. So for example, I will select this satisfactory icon, and for the name I will call it remarks. And in preferred values I will select the preferred values for this. So for example, I will select good, and I will also select the like icon over here, like this one. And now if I go to the instance, you can see that I can change the remarks to other icon. Like for example, I will select the good over here according to its label, and in the second one I want to show the excellent. So over here I will switch from satisfactory icon to thumbs up, and for the label I will select the excellent one. So what if I want to change this icon over here in this input field? So I will go to the master component where it's coming from, and in properties panel I will select again the nested instances over here. So as these are interconnected with each other, so I will select this icons over here. And now this input field is connected with the card component. I will select this card component and I will again go to the properties panel, and in nested instances you can see that I have the option for satisfactory, and input field also have the option for icons. So now if I go to the instance of this card, you can see that if I have selected the input field and I have the default over here, I have also option for changing the icon. Like I can change it to bad, I can change it to note, and I can change it to good again. And if I select the disable state, as it has no icon in the parent one, so I don't have the option to change the icon for that one. But if I select the error message, you can see that I got the icon field again over here. So this is how you can use the nested instances, and you can interconnect all the components with each other, but it will be relying on its master component itself. And if you make changes to the master component, it will be changing all over all the prototypes or in the library once you publish it to the libraries. Now one more thing that we can do with the component is I will show you another example. For example, I have a website over here and I have some components used inside that, and I want to create a component that is used for mobile, it also used for tablet, and it is also used for desktop version. So to create that kind of a component, I will select this example over here. Like this is the intro of the website, so I will make a copy of this, and in this copy first I will try to create the component of this specific element. And now in properties panel, I will go ahead and I will select the variant for this one, and I will rename this specific component and I will call this introduction or intro. And now in the properties, I will call this layout. Like I am selecting a layout maybe for mobile, desktop, or for the tablet version. And instead of the default, I will call this as a mobile. So I will rename this one. So you can see that it's not allowing me to rename the default because I don't have the second variant at yet. Once I create a second variant, then I have the option to rename the default state or the variant. So in the mobile version, what I want to do is I want to show this headline a little bit in smaller text. For example, I will select 40 over here. For the paragraph, I will select 16 instead of 24. And in mobile, I don't want to show this book now button, so for this variant I will remove this book now button from here. And now I will zoom out and I will create another variant of this, and that variant will be used in the tablet version only, but I will decrease the spacing between them, and I will decrease the spacing maybe to 4. And same for the paragraph and the heading, I will decrease the spacing to 24. And I will select this master component and I will create an auto layout for this one. And now I will go ahead and I will create another variant for this one, or I can press this plus icon over here, and selecting the master component, I will change the direction in the auto layout so it can show me in the nicer way. And in the tablet version, first thing I would do is to change the width of its parent component. I will change it to 768, and in direction I will change the direction and also direction for the inner auto layout. And I will make some more changes. For example, I will change this height of image a little bit more, and in the tablet version I will include this button, so I will make a copy over here and include it inside with this specific paragraph, and change the height maybe a little bit so it is aligned with the book now button. And I will take this image to the right side and bring this paragraph and button to the left side. So I will change the position in the layers panel, and as I have created all this layout in auto layout, so it's changing everything according to its auto layout functionality. And now if I select the master component, you can see that I have two variants, like the first one is called default and the second one is layout 2. But I will go ahead and now I have the option to rename it, so I will call this mobile, and I will select the second variant and I will call this one as a tablet. And now I will press this plus icon once again, selecting the second variant. And for the desktop version, first I will rename it to desktop. And now I will observe my width for the desktop version, that is 1440. So I will select the width of 1440 over here. And in desktop version, I want to show this heading like in bigger font size, so I will select this 64 over here. And for the paragraph, I want to show it with bigger font size, so I will select 24 over here. And as this is introduction, I want to show a good image and it should be representing my website, so I will increase the width and height of this specific image over here like this, and make the heading a little bit more, and aligning this image to the book now button like this. So now I will use the respective component that I have created, or the variant that I have created for a specific layout. So I will remove these frames from here, and I will create a copy of this mobile variant and I will paste it over here. And now if I select the same copy and paste it inside the tablet, you can see that it's the variant of mobile. So now in the drop down, I will select the tablet variant and I will grab this copy and I will leave it inside the desktop. And for the desktop version, I will select the layout of desktop version. So this is how you can create a component with multiple variants and according to your prototype, and it doesn't disturb the specific layout that you have created for your prototype. So for example, if you want to make some certain changes only for mobile version, you can do those changes only for the mobile variant. And if you want to make some certain changes for desktop version only, so you can do those changes only to your desktop variant. So for example, now after some time, I thought that I should create some Boolean value for this image inside the mobile variant only. So I will select this master component and I will press this plus icon and I will go to Boolean and I will call this image. And for the default value, I want to select true and I will create the property. And now for the mobile image, I will select this frame, and on this frame on the layers panel, I will go ahead and I will select this property that I have created on the component. So now if I go to the instance of mobile version over here, you can see that I have the switch for hiding and showing the image. So it depends, like you can make future decisions according to your feedback from stakeholders or from your users. So this is how you can basically use components in your prototypes, and you can use different properties, and you can use the nested instances for your designs. If you are new to Figma, you may struggle a little bit in the start, but after practicing, like you practice on 3 or 4 designs, you will be able to create all the components and its nested instances and every kind of feature that you want. So the key is practice over here. And if you have any question and you didn't understand anything, you can ask me in the comment box and I will answer it. And if you have learned something from this video, you can hit this like icon. It will keep me motivated and I will create more videos like this for you people. Thanks for watching.